Zidane Danny, Electro Ninja here, and welcome back to Electro Ninja's Lab. In today's video, we are going to be discussing the latest chapter of My Hero Academia Vigilantes. And real quick, I'd just like to say, I honestly have no idea how much longer this series is going to be going for. I honestly don't see it going much further than this chapter, but excuse me. There's still a decent amount of stuff that's going to be going on in Vigilantes. So, let's actually talk about what this chapter was. So, first off, this chapter begins with, right off where we left off, with Eraser and Crawler phasing off towards each other, ready to have a conversation. And honestly, I think that this is actually really important, because Aizawa is already developing his tough macho love that has kind of existed throughout the rest of the main series. So it's actually kind of interesting to see that this kind of feels more like the beginnings of that. Before, he didn't really have this tough macho love that I'm going to fight you in order to show that I love you. Which he's kind of been showing for basically all of My Hero, but it hasn't really been to this extent in Vigilantes yet. Which I honestly thought was kind of interesting, but now that we actually know more about his backstory, it actually makes a lot of sense. And honestly, this feels like a good origin for him, to actually have him start to use his quirk to help kids who have gone on wayward paths. The fact is that Koichi is going down a path that could get him into a lot of trouble. The others basically just want to save him, help him to save Popstep and get things done with. But I think that it's interesting that Eraser is kind of acting like he's in the opposite boat, but he really does still want to help Koichi. I don't know. It's kind of complicated, and I don't want to get into the whole conversation right now, but it is absolutely an interesting situation. Now, as for the rest of the chapter, we mostly get to see a lot of people just reacting to these weird people that have been showing up, specifically because number 6 has been prepping for an attack. And oh boy, this worries me a lot, because now all of the heroes and the cops and the vigilantes are all kind of at war with one another. The cops are completely against Koichi. Koichi is trying to avoid the heroes and the cops, and the heroes don't really want to help the cops to bring him into jail. It's all complicated, and oh boy. And I honestly think that it's kind of interesting that number 6 is completely planning to destroy everything, and has basically been hearing messages from his master, aka O'Clock. But I actually want to talk briefly about that. Something that's honestly been a bit confusing for a while is why exactly is he considering his master to be the one who's in control of him and telling him what to do and all of this stuff. But honestly, I didn't really think about it until now that we know a lot more thanks to My Hero Academia. But honestly, every single quirk has an innate person connected to it. And now that we know that O'Clock's quirk is within number 6 and all of that jazz, it actually does make sense that he would be listening to him. The fact is that he is listening to O'Clock as his quirk is. And that's actually kind of an interesting situation. If you actually look closely at a lot of the stuff that's happened with O'Clock, basically everything that number 6 says is very close to what O'Clock has done in the past, and is still doing. But the fact is that it is still a slight difference. A difference that would be noticed by someone who is a villain. Everything is working for number 6. And it actually clears up a lot of interesting details about how discussion with people who've used your quirk in the past work with you. There are still some differences that are kind of hard to be certain of. People still seem to have their own personalities, but to a certain degree, if your will is strong enough, you can actually take control of what they're thinking. And since the quirk was originally stolen by All for One, it actually makes sense that it would become evil and kind of have a weird twist that has both O'Clock's beliefs as well as All for One. Just something to think about for sure. But needless to say, there is a lot of stuff to worry about. Also, I guess number 6 now has a whole army on his side. Now, as for what I think is going to happen in the future, I actually do think that the heroes, the vigilantes, and the cops are all going to work together. I know that that's a weird thing to say, but it's going to be in that moment where Koichi is going to realize that he needs to work with these people. There is no other option, because here comes number 6, and he does not have any other option but to work with the heroes. And it's going to be tough. It is absolutely going to be tough. And hopefully the heroes and the cops will understand this whole situation and be ready to help him, but I don't know. Now, last thing I want to talk about, and I know this video is probably going to be really short compared to my other videos, but it kind of has to be. I want to just acknowledge the fact that Koichi has trained himself so much thanks to that of Knuckle Duster, and has worked himself to make sure that he is ready to actually fight. Even without his quirk, he is able to maneuver around the city with great ease, able to use a grappling hook very effectively to escape. Even if he's falling, boom, grappling hook, swing away, continue to use it, regain his quirk, continue working. It's honestly really interesting, but it's also really interesting to know that Koichi and Aizawa are actually really good foils for each other. The fact is that both of them have traits that just work. Koichi is basically the vigilante form of Aizawa. He's using his quirk, sure, but he's not using it all the time. It's not necessarily the best quirk ever. And he understands that and is able to use the quirk effectively, but also able to switch to not using the quirk in an instant. And that is honestly really amazing, and it really shows how much thought went into Knuckle Duster's training. Because honestly, here's the thing: we all know that Knuckle Duster is O'Clock, the original O'Clock. So it actually makes a lot of sense that when Knuckle Duster is training his students, he would train them how to use techniques if they lose their quirk for whatever reason, and teach them, hey, use things that don't require your quirk in multiple situations, because sometimes you're not going to be able to use your quirk. Obviously, there is Aizawa, but the other fact is that he also knows that All for One is a person who can steal quirks. And because of that, he, above almost anyone else in the world, would completely understand that is why you need to be able to use other abilities that you have within you besides that of your quirk. It's honestly a really interesting look into Knuckle Duster's training, because honestly, we don't get to see too much of the training, except for the fact that, yeah, they're training and all of that jazz. Most of what we see is just Koichi learning how to use his quirk, but there is little hints that he is being taught how to use things that are not connected to his quirk. So it's honestly really interesting, to say the least. I don't know. There's a lot to it, and I'm really excited to see how everything will turn out going forward into the future. But anyways, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. make sure to read the chapter if you haven't yet, and get ready for the next chapters of Vigilantes as we continue our discussion on this whole situation. And also, get ready for... I'm not certain exactly how timing is going to work out for everything going forward, but be ready for my Hero Academia manga versus anime review, as well as my chapter review that will be coming out tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. Yeah, it is actually tomorrow. Whoops. But look forward to that, as well as, of course, the nerd the nerd chat that should have either released at the same time as this video or it will release at noon. I'm not exactly certain on my exact timings yet, so yeah. But anyways, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and ring that notification bell. And of course, if you do have any thoughts or theories, please leave them down in the comments below, including, and if you are going to leave a theory, make sure to say theory review somewhere in your comments so that we can talk about it in a future video. And of course, if you want to support the channel even more, then definitely head down to the description and check out all of our links down there, including our social medias, ways that you can support us financially, including our Patreon, our merch store, and the book. Big thank you to our current patron, Sheeny. And of course, make sure to check out the other two channels, also linked down in the description below. But anyways, guys, I have been Electric Ninja, and I will see you guys next time. But on!